Hi, I'm Kaja.
And I'm Joanna.
And this is Starlit Citadel Reviews.
Eldritch Horror is the new H.P. Lovecraft-themed cooperative game from Corey Konieczka, Nikki Valens, and Fantasy Flight Games.
In Eldritch Horror, players are globe-trotting investigators attempting to save the world from doom at the hands of an ancient one. You can play with 1 to 8 players, and it takes 2 to 4 hours. There is an expansion, Forsaken Lore, which adds a new ancient one and new cards.
Players begin Eldritch Horror by laying out the board, dice, tokens, and spell, asset, condition, expedition, and encounter cards. Starting with a randomly chosen lead investigator, everybody chooses a character and takes their sheet, token, starting assets, and health and sanity tokens. The players choose an ancient one and set up the Doom track, mythos deck, and mystery, research, and special encounter cards according to the ancient one's sheet.
The regular monsters are placed in a cup. Players spawn a number of gates and clues determined by the number of players, placing them onto the spaces they list, and place the expedition token. The Omen token goes on the Comet space. The top 4 cards of the asset deck go face up in the reserve, and the first mystery is revealed. Then, the game begins.
Each round of Eldritch Horror has 3 phases: action, encounter, and mythos. In the action phase, each player takes 2 different actions, beginning with the lead investigator. So they can travel, rest, trade, prepare for travel, take a component action, or acquire assets.
Traveling lets a player move to a space that's connected to theirs by a path. They may spend travel tickets of the type matching their path to move 1 additional space per ticket. Resting lets you recover 1 health and 1 sanity.
Trading lets players on the same space exchange assets, artifacts, clues, spells, and travel tickets. If a player is on a city space, they can prepare for travel by taking 1 ticket of a type that matches a path connecting to their space, to a maximum of 2 tickets per player.
Acquiring assets requires an influence skill test. In a test, the player rolls a number of dice equal to their skill value, plus any bonuses provided by items. If they roll at least 1, 5, or 6, they succeed. They can take 1 asset from the reserve with a cost in its upper left equal to or less than the number of successes rolled. If they don't collect any assets, they can discard 1 from the reserve, and it's immediately refilled.
Players can take actions listed on components such as character sheets and cards. Now, you can't perform 2 actions from the same component in a round, but you can take 2 different actions from different components. A local action can be performed by any player in the same space as that action's owner, and you cannot take any acquire assets or rest actions if there's a monster on your space.
During the encounter phase, each player resolves 1 encounter. They draw a card from the appropriate location deck and resolve the encounter that corresponds to their space. Encounters may give you items or spells, inflict a condition, or let you improve a skill. To improve a skill, a player takes a +1 token of the appropriate type and places it as a permanent increase on their character sheet.
A clue token on your space lets you resolve a research encounter instead in order to collect that clue. A gate token triggers other world encounters to close the gate. The expedition token triggers an expedition encounter. The rumor token lets you resolve an ongoing mythos card. And a defeated investigator lets you resolve the encounter on the back of their character sheet in order to collect their items.
If there are monsters on a player's space, the player must resolve 1 combat encounter per monster. The player flips over a monster's token and tests will, then strength. When testing will, they lose 1 sanity per point of difference between the monster's horror value and the number of successes rolled. When testing strength, the monster takes 1 point of damage for every success rolled, and the player loses 1 health for every point by which the monster's damage score exceeds their successes.
If the monster takes damage equal to or greater than its toughness, it is returned to the cup. If a character runs out of health or sanity, their token is tipped sideways and a health or sanity token is placed on top of it to indicate how it was defeated. and their player will take a new character at the end of the mythos phase. Now, if their character survives all the combat encounters and there are no monsters left on its space, then it can resolve another encounter.
In the mythos phase, the lead investigator draws the top card from the mythos deck and resolves the symbols it shows. These may spawn more gates, with one monster at each, cause a monster surge at each gate, spawn clues, trigger reckoning effects on cards and monsters, or advance the omen track. When this happens, the doom track is also advanced, one for every gate on the board which has an omen symbol matching the one that's currently active on the omen track.
Players then resolve the text of the mythos card, which may have an immediate or an ongoing effect. They may also be able to resolve the current mystery and draw a new one. The lead investigator may pass their token to another player, and the next round begins.
The players win if they solve 3 mysteries before the doom track reaches 0 and the Ancient One awakens. If the Ancient One awakens, the defeat and victory conditions change, and they're listed on the back of the Ancient One's card. So players lose if they meet the defeat conditions, or if they try to draw a mythos card and there aren't any left.
So the obvious comparison for Eldritch Horror is its predecessor and direct inspiration, Arkham Horror, which is a hugely popular, very heavy, very dense cooperative game. And it's something that I've always wanted to like more than I actually did, because I found it just too drawn out, too heavy and clunky and fiddly for the story and the engagement that it actually had to offer. And I'm really happy to see that Eldritch Horror has stripped a lot of that clunkiness out. This really does feel like a lighter, livelier, more engaging, and more strategic Arkham Horror, where there's a lot more focus on the decisions the players make and the story that's actually happening, rather than the mechanics and the rules and the moving around of tokens that were such a big and, to me, detrimental part of Arkham Horror. There's a real sense of speed and of life to this game that just really makes it a lot more exciting for me. Another thing that absolutely makes it come to life is the way in which they've integrated the theme into the components that are there. One of my favorite effects is the double-sided cards that are used throughout Eldritch Horror. There's the defeated investigator encounters, there's the turning over of the ancient ones. Spells and conditions also work this way, where you have to perform a task or do a test, and then you flip over the card to see what happens, and they're all different. So there's, not only is there, some replayability there, but there's a real sense of risk. You're gonna try casting a spell, and you don't actually know what it's going to do until it's too late to turn back. And that lends a real sense of urgency and of danger and of challenge to this game that just makes the theme so immersive and makes it a lot of fun and challenge to play. One big downside for this game is once you get up to a larger player count, you're going to start running into really long downtimes in between turns. Because the investigators act independently, everybody takes their 2 actions one after the other and then waits for the next player to go, there's not really anything that you can do during somebody else's turn. So if there's 6 or 7 or 8 of you, you're going to spend a lot of time sitting around and watching other players take their turns. Hopefully those turns are going to be exciting and you still get some interesting story out of that, but that kind of downtime can definitely be a turnoff for some players.
So another thing that might disappoint some people who are looking for a scaled down version of Arkham Horror is the fact that a little bit of sort of the super scary creepiness that lived in Arkham Horror has been scaled out of this. This is more like adventure pulp rather than that really creepy horror Lovecraftian element to it. The story is still there, the flavor is still there, for sure it still lives in that world, but it's not quite as creepy, so don't be disappointed. That being said, I love this game. Of course I love this game. It's Lovecraftian, which I love, and I love cooperative games. I was a big fan of Arkham Horror, and I still am. But this game is shorter, it's more accessible. I'm probably going to get more people to want to play with me, so probably this game is going to get more play for me than Arkham Horror does. It's also got a huge amount of replayability in it, with all the different ancient ones, the different characters you can play, the variability on the backs of the spell cards, the encounters. There's a lot of stuff in this game, so you're going to play it over and over again and discover new things. Also, the decision making feels really tight. It feels like every decision that you make matters. So every time you're trying to figure out what you should do in a situation, it feels like the stakes are really high. And it should, really. I mean, this is a Lovecraftian game. You're dealing with the end of the world. You're dealing with elder gods. It should feel like every decision you make is very, very important. And I'm glad that this game, even though it's scaled down from Arkham Horror, it still holds on to that sense of urgency. And I think that that makes this game just as good a choice of Arkham Horror, if not better. What does Eldritch even mean?